It's my real pleasure to now to introduce Elizabeth Nelson and Alia Eisenstadt. Elizabeth Nelson has been a member of Pacificus core faculty since 2003. She specializes in scholarly writing, research process and strategy, methodology, and dissertation development, and also teaches courses in dreams, imagery, and cultural studies. Her own research interests include personal and cultural expressions of the shadow, gender, and power, with a particular devotion to dangerous women in text, film, and life. Elizabeth has bridged her professional experience in technology with her background in literature and expertise in depth psychology to teach courses on the profound impact of digital technology. Elizabeth is the author of 2 books, The Art of Inquiry, which is now in its 3rd edition, and her 2nd book, Psyche's Knife, Archetypal Explorations of Love and Power. Prior to her teaching career, Dr. Nelson worked with Silicon Valley startups for 18 years as a professional writer, editor, and marketing consultant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David, for the wonderful introductions. And also thank you to Pacifica for inviting me to speak on this topic. Something that has been of interest to me for a long time. I'm also very honored to be able to co-present with Alia Eisenstadt, who's going to follow me shortly. And we have, when we got together to talk about our panel, we had one broad aim for the work that we're going to be presenting, which is actually quite different. But the broad aim is this. We agree that the technology conversation is polarized and polarizing. So our task is to avoid the extremes of technophobia, the fear of technology, and technophilia, the absolute enchantment with technology, the love of technology. So one of the things I'm going to say is that as a skilled depth psychologist, our task really is to follow the shadow, follow our own shadow. So to notice whenever we make any kind of an extreme or categorical statement, some part of contributing to that polarizing conversation, to ask ourselves, okay, what are we not paying attention to? What have we forgotten? What have we not emphasized? What have we not noticed? What have we neglected? So there's a lot of shadowy material in the conversation around technology. And we acknowledged that together. So 2 of the questions that we want to keep in mind as both of us do our presentations today is, how does technology enhance life? And how does it undermine, wound, or damage life? Both questions are important to keep in our mind. Obviously, these are huge questions. We're not going to even begin to have a complete answer, but we're going to keep that in mind as we go forward with our presentations. So that's our aim. All right. So the title of my presentation, I Love My iPhone, the Extended Body in Cyberspace, already hints at the approach that I'm taking to pervasive mobile digital technology. I want to pause right there and mention that technology is a huge field. There's lots of technologies out there. But I'm going to be focusing on mobile digital technology, the kind of stuff that everybody in this room, I'm going to be willing to bet has a smartphone in their pocket or their purse or their briefcase or on the floor underneath their chair or in their hand. So pervasive mobile digital technology, that's my focus. I'm using the phrase extended body because I'm going to be speaking the language of somatics. Somatics, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the term, is an interdisciplinary field that focuses on embodied experience and perception. It's the subjective sense of ourselves as integrated body minds that dream, sense, feel, observe, intuit, move, decide, and act in the world. Most experts credit Thomas Hanna with introducing the word somatics in 1970, and he contrasts soma with body. So whereas body connotes a piece of meat, an object drained of life and ready to be worked on and used, soma is the alive body, pulsing, flowing, squeezing, relaxing, the body that experiences the flow of emotions and moods. It's our lived subjective experience of the body. One of the things I want to point out before going on is that there has been a long tradition in Western culture, which now really is global culture in many respects, to treat the body as a piece of meat, to treat the body as an object. We objectify the body. When we pay attention to the body at all, it's usually because we're trying to perfect it or shape it or change the shape of it. We're measuring it. Okay? So this is not the body as object. This is something quite different. All right. So the lived experience of the body owes something to two philosophical traditions, existentialism and phenomenology. Particularly, it owes something to the mid-century theory of Maurice Merleau-Ponty. He resolved the philosophical mind-body inner-outer debate by asserting that perception is always embodied. It is not an inner mental state somehow divorced from the flesh. Perception means inhabiting a world. Without our bodies, knowing and being, freedom and responsibility, and the process of individuation, all of them are impossible. The body is the crucial uniting factor. I'm going to quote the chair of our somatic specialization, Ray Johnson, who says that our visceral impulses serve as the foundation for personal agency, guiding us as we move through the world, reaching for some things and refusing others. Our bodily encounters with the physical environment shape and reshape our understanding of the world. We learn about gravity by falling down and discover how our point of view changes when we walk around and encounter new perspectives. I was interested to hear Eric mention somatic practices a little bit earlier today and grounding practices. One of the quickest ways to change your point of view is do an inversion pose in yoga. Stand on your head and feel how the world is quite different. Okay, that's an example of the way that our body guides our perceptions. But this is the question. What happens when we extend the body and the lived experience of the body to the degree that a tool is no longer what we pick up and put down and put away, but something that accompanies us everywhere, all of the time? At what point do we lose awareness of the tool as a tool and consider it simply part of the self without which our lives are impossible? Clearly, as I mentioned before, technology covers a wide array of things. My focus is on the sleek, handy device billions of people carry everywhere and the invisible web that makes them useful. Psychoanalysts used to talk about free-floating anxiety. Maybe they still do. I'm not sure. I would argue that the vast majority of the world is now enclosed in free-floating information. Technophobes, which includes me when I'm cranky or my tech isn't working, which those two things usually go together. I'm cranky and my tech isn't working, or my tech isn't working and I'm cranky. They would argue that we have not traded up. Free-floating information is not an improvement over free-floating anxiety. In fact, the two of them might go together. Others who are predisposed towards technophilia argue that mobile digital technology gives us unprecedented freedoms, allows us to maintain face-to-face contact with friends all over the world, and ultimately improves our lives. Tech offers both. At any given moment, it can be a technophobe's nightmare and the technophiliac's delight. Pervasive mobile digital technology has initiated the next phase in the evolution of sapiens and sapien culture. Technohumanism, also known as posthumanism and transhumanism, has superseded humanism, according to some experts. Ultimately, we may end up dispensing with humanism and humans altogether. So here's a definition of technohumanism from PC Magazine, which actually has a pretty nice glossary online. Techno-humanism envisions a world where technology is so highly integrated into society that it becomes part of our greater intelligence and enables us to live longer. Today, smartphones enable everyone to have answers at their fingertips. In the future, sensors may detect the birth of serious diseases at a point where they can immediately be eradicated. Techno-humanism implies that humans are going to be intrinsically linked with technology from birth. At this moment in sapien history, techno-human is only linking flesh and circuitry for the most part. It is not yet merging with flesh. But either step alters our conception of psyche as embedded in and arising from organic nature. Either step significantly shapes somatic psychology, that is, the way we live the integrated body, mind, spirit, and soul. Brief aside, in my perfect world, the redundancy in the phrase somatic psychology is deeply weird. No legitimate psychology should treat the body as an object to be inspected, manipulated, and one day, if the techno-fantasists have their way, upgraded. Back to Thomas Hanna, who simply declares that from the somatic viewpoint, study of the living, functioning body is the study of the psyche. So a somatic approach to technology emphasizes our embodied participation with our mobile devices, the ways in which humans incorporate them into bodily life, to the point where we nearly forget their presence unless we panic because we've forgotten the device at home. That happens, obviously. Regardless of whether we are in private or increasingly in public space, we can log into the wireless internet via small, sleek devices that we carry in a pocket or wear like clothing. In fact, if we have been in that environment before, the devices automatically check in for us. Our presence is registered. We are known. One more time, a technophobe's nightmare, a technophiliac's fantasy. If you've been on this campus before with your wireless device, you didn't need to log in. Your device logged you in. Voila, magic. Since smartphones can literally accompany us everywhere, many people spend more time with their tech than they do with their loved ones and signify this intimacy through personalizing as well as personifying their devices. The psychological implications are profound, particularly if we agree with Marshal McLuhan's 1964 warning about the use of media. Our conventional response to all media, namely that it is how they are used that counts, is the numb stance of the technological idiot. For the content of a medium is like the juicy piece of meat carried by the burglar to distract the watchdog of the mind. So, what is technology? McLuhan's statement begs this question. But if this question seems ridiculous to you, you are not alone. Even Jungians, who are encouraged to think far outside the mainstream, may not have given enough attention to McLuhan's radical idea. Technology, he says, is not a thing, an object, or a device that we pick up and put down. It is an active process that changes our physical and social environment, altering our patterns of perception steadily and without any resistance. Technology shapes and controls the scale and form of human association and action. Our watchdog minds, according to McLuhan, should ignore the apps. Forget about the apps. Don't count your apps. Don't even think about that's what's important. Instead, we should alert to how our tech alters the self, extending it and limiting it. The first world self, in fact, is no longer a body-mind. It is a techno-body-mind. We are already post-human. Let me offer a homely example of how the use of mobile digital devices is an active shaping process. A 2012 report, which is old research as far as technology is concerned, found that 1/3 of users go online before getting out of bed in the morning. Before they even set the feet on the floor, they're already logged into a device. A 2014 study, which also is out of date when we're talking about the fast pace of technological innovation, says that 80% of smartphone users check their device within 15 minutes of waking up every morning. McLuhan would point out that it is not what we are checking on the smartphone, it is the fact that we are checking. Mobile digital technology is an active shaping process, affects the way we wake up every day. Our first conscious sensations, the shape of our perceptions, and what our hands reach for, touch, or hold. Decades ago, I was blessed to work with an unbelievable teacher. And she became my cherished mentor for a number of years and very, very dear friend. And she had a simple adage. She says, "As the first hour, so goes the whole day." As the first hour, so goes the whole day. So how might your day unfold differently if you didn't reach for the smartphone within 15 minutes of awakening? What if any of us reached for something equally near? Imagine yourself running fingertips over smooth sheets or a nubby blanket, placing a palm on the warm body of a partner, or feeling the low rumbling vibration of a purring cat. To avoid the technophobia trap, let us say that checking the smartphone immediately upon awakening is neither good nor bad. I simply encourage you to recall Patricia's statement. One of these mornings, notice your first hour, what you reach for, what you touch, what you see, what you smell, and observe how it is echoed throughout your day. There's little doubt that Americans and others are merging with their tech. The number of hours we face a screen continues to rise, approximately 8 hours in 2012, more than 12 hours in 2017. As one author put it, in less than the span of a single childhood, the internet has created a whole new mental environment, a digital state of nature where the human mind becomes a spinning instrument panel. He goes on to add, few people will survive unscathed. As depth psychologists, let's notice the language. Unscathed is a derogatory term that carries an explicit judgment, right? Unaffected is more neutral and invites the question, how does technology affect me for better and for worse? When is it vitally important that I have that smartphone right at my fingertips? Maybe there's a family emergency. Maybe a member of the family is dying. Maybe my child is traveling in Europe all on her own, and I'm a scared to death parent. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why it might be really nice to have that phone very handy. Okay. So this question, how does technology affect me for better and for worse, is a really curious one. And to explore it, I devised a simple experiment for my graduate students. I collected 5 years of data from doctoral candidates in 2 different programs, the somatic studies specialization and the psychotherapy specialization. For those of you who are interested in statistics, the sample size was 180, give or take. The so-called simple experiment is a 72-hour digital fast with a few ironclad rules. First, students have to stay in their normal personal and professional life. Doing the fast is not a rationale to hie off to Tahiti or hike the Pacific Crest Trail. Second, it must be 72 consecutive hours, not 2 hours a day for 36 days. Graduate students, I've discovered, are very, very good at negotiating assignments. Third, the idea is they keep a journal of this experience. And success is measured by their dedication to observing themselves and their lives without technology, insofar that's even possible in the 21st century, not how many consecutive hours lapse before they unconsciously reach for the smartphone. One of my students made it exactly 3.5 hours, and he said in response to the fast, he said, "I am a terrible, terrible man." He was partly joking, but partly not. But the fact that he failed prompted him to keep thinking about that failure and the experience of resisting the device for days afterwards. So I said to him, definitely, this is not an epic fail, which was his description for it. The pain and frustration of this assignment, by the way, okay, it's partly mitigated by the fact that that all of my students are absolutely free to call me all kinds of nasty names in their journal, which they turn into me, right? They do, they have, and it's okay. So each year I've conducted a thematic analysis of the results of the digital fast, and I notice a few linked trends. First, it's getting more difficult to live without tech. Second, participants view the mere idea of living without tech as increasingly punitive. They think I'm punishing them by giving them this assignment. Third, the right to own and use tech anywhere has become the behavioral norm. Life without tech is unimaginable. As a result, the thought experiment I propose to my students now no longer seems absurd. I ask them, which would you rather be without for 24 hours? The use of your dominant arm or your smartphone? The fact that they even have to think about this question says a great deal. So here are just a few comments from my students responding to the fast. I am cyborg, no doubt about it. My computer is an external brain, a place where I pour out my thoughts and memories and communicate to the world. It is an intimate piece of me. You ever get on another person's laptop? There's something icky about it, like being unfaithful or invading a personal space. If I have your computer or your phone, I have a piece of your soul. That is scary. My cell phone loves me. My cell phone was created to love me. Navigation, calendar, scheduling, texts, Facebook, calorie counter, car remote, sleep monitor, restaurant guide. It cares for me almost seamlessly. The wires started taking shape in my imagination as an umbilical cord, or the lack of it. I leave my own body and transport my consciousness to wherever the digital portal will take me. I feel myself travel down a rabbit hole into another world, clamoring for attention. As we have said, the technology conversation tends towards polarization. One expert who has moved from cautious to alarmed is Sherry Turkle. In 2012, she wrote, "Our devices are ever more closely coupled to our sense of our bodies and minds. They provide a social and psychological GPS, a navigation system for our tethered selves. It offers a way of spending more time with friends and family in which we hardly give them any attention at all." Certainly, any of us can witness the world of continuous partial attention on a daily basis, and we didn't need tech to have continuous partial attention. Here is one heartbreaking example that occurs frequently in my neighborhood, and probably in yours too. People talking and texting while walking their dogs. They drag their dogs down the sidewalk on leashes that choke and strangle more than guide. These owners, enchanted by their smartphones, are completely heedless of the animal's needs. as the neglected creature stumbles, skids, and trips on the concrete. In my world, this is animal abuse. On the other hand, last Saturday morning, I participated in a Faces to Faces international meeting of Jungian colleagues to plan our 2020 academic conference. I made the mistake of saying good morning to friends in the UK and Spain, who were, quite happily, enjoying a glass of wine while I was drinking my coffee. Oops. It was wonderful to really see, hear, and feel them across thousands of miles. I felt their presence, even though it was a Zoom conference and all I was seeing was the image on the screen. It was remarkable and productive too. And we had fun, which is good. So one corner of the technology debate asks whether or not digital technology is something really new or merely the continuation and extension of who we have always been. Though we have labeled ourselves Homo sapiens, which I think is a little cheeky on our part, a more accurate moniker for our species is Homo faber, man the maker. In 2003, nearly 5 years before the introduction of the iPhone, Andy Clark argued that we are natural-born cyborgs, eager team players in a problem-solving field populated by an incredible variety of non-biological props, scaffoldings, instruments, and resources. Today's symbiosis with technology has more effectively allowed us to become thinking and reasoning systems, this is his language, whose minds and selves are spread across biological brain and non-biological circuitry. But he says, symbiosis, making and using technology, is deeply human. It's characteristic human behavior since what best explains the distinctive features of human intelligence is precisely the ability to enter into deep and complex relationships with non-biological constructs, props, and aids. Minds, Clark says, and I would add bodies too, are complex, messy, contested, and permeable. In short, we have been extending our bodies through the creative invention and use of tools for millennia. We are Homo faber. Mobile digital technology and the streaming environment of digital data that makes it useful is just the latest in a long line of non-biological constructs, props, and aids that testify to human inventiveness, that testify to our techne. As Clark points out, there is no question that we have entered into deep and complex relationships with our tech. We spend a great deal of time and attention personalizing our devices, choosing the right color, and continually personify them as well. For many people, it is difficult to say where they end and their tech begins. So here's the story. A guy walks into a bar. This is not a joke, actually. This is really true. It sounds like a bad joke, but it's not, okay? It's the local Genius bar at his Apple store. After 25 frustrating minutes in which he's discovered that the phone cannot be repaired and he's lost all his data because he hasn't backed up recently. Okay, we have a few people, okay, right? He snatches the broken phone away from the Genius technician, right? He lifts it high overhead and yells at the top of his lungs to everyone in a very crowded Apple store, "You don't understand. This is not a phone. This is my life." In fact, in honest moments, many smartphone users might admit that their lives would instantly become unmanageable if they lost their phone. There's a few people in the audience that are recognizing this. Most of us move so unconsciously between the physical real and the digital real that the self is truly an assortment of identities, a mix, a mashup, played out in both spaces, the digital real and the physical real. However, there's one important difference with our latest invention. We can become someone else without ever leaving our present habitat, our physical body in physical space at this moment in time. We depart without leaving, but I would argue that something is left behind. What is left behind? Clearly, if the world on my lighted screen absorbs me so completely that I forget I'm walking my dog, forget that I even have a dog, I have become anesthetized to the full sensory experience of this moment right now. One wonders, has techno-humanism rendered obsolete Merleau-Ponty's central phenomenological idea that perception is somatic, bodily, tethered to a location in space-time? Is the notion of the bodily basis of knowing simply quaint? Catherine Hales of UCLA might say yes. Central to the construction of the cyborg are informational pathways connecting the organic body to its prosthetic extensions. When information loses its body, equating humans and computers is especially easy. In this new techno-humanist world, information becomes the essential medium that supports fantasies of freedom, all centered around extending and transcending the body. That freedom can mean the difference between survival and suicide to a queer or questioning child born into a Christian evangelical community. It can mean freedom to a political prisoner living under a repressive regime. And it can mean freedom and comfort and support to a woman raped by her boss, wondering if anyone else can understand the terror of speaking out. On the other hand, deifying information and unlinking it from the body frees it from the material constraints that govern the mortal world, because if we can become the information we have constructed, we can achieve effective immortality. Immortality is, in fact, the fantasy of many technophiles. There's a crucial difference between augmented intelligence, using our smart devices to enhance our natural capacities, and artificial intelligence, which is form and content without flesh. In our ultimate quest for digital life, we may well be engineering our own species' extinction. And I wonder, how is dispensing with the body and downloading so-called pure consciousness to a machine different from the age-old desire for spiritual transcendence? Humans have a long history of trying to eradicate the body rather than live it. As we extend our bodies into cyberspace, this is the shadow I am watching. Thank you.